Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today I want to talk about specifically about the TrueScum community or transmeds and non-binary people. So I wanted to pretty much I don't usually venture outside of all the communities I frequent, and I am rather I'd say non-binary positive. Obviously, because I've had interest in non-binary people. I've had relationships, have a relationship with non-binary people, and obviously, I can't just put everyone under the umbrella and say something like, "Oh, all non-binary people are great," because obviously, under every umbrella, under every race, under every gender, under every ethnicity, we'll have shitty people. We just have shitty people everywhere. Dot. But when it comes to non-binary people, I do feel like they get a lot of hate, and specifically from the TrueScum transmed communities. And this is where usually I don't tend to venture in, but it ended up coming across my screen, and I figured that I have to address this and the fact that people are getting very rowdy about it. And there were some comments being said that I read online which really kind of pissed me off. So since we're going there, I'm just gonna say that I am personally a binary trans guy. I do wear makeup. I still present very masculine. I'm very mask in my life, and sometimes when I don't wear makeup, I'm pretty much the guy you just go across the street from in a dark alley, like for real. I'm sort of average height for where I live, and kind of being bulky and everything. Uh, and having an angry Slav face, I don't exactly look very friendly without makeup sometimes. But yeah, so I do have to preface that, and also like since transmeds only listen to people who sort of they feel like they only can listen to someone else's binary or like etc. And there's this whole idea of transgenders, and this is where I personally feel very uncomfortable. So when it comes to transgenders, I do want to say that I can only speak from my own experience, and I know cases where people have been turned down for HRT and etc. And these were done by doctors. So obviously, I can understand that in the US you have informed consent in many places. So obviously, people can go and get hormones with their own understanding, with their own assessments. Now, personally, do I agree with it? I do, but I also understand the need for an assessment. But when it comes for an assessment, I do have to say that there are certain lines which are blurry, for instance, like for non-binary people. And I do understand that maybe a lot of these transmed people, or some of them, met uncomfortable or had uncomfortable discussions with non-binary people. Because I was friends with a transmasculine dude, and he pretty much was revolted by the fact that I was getting followed. Um, so yeah, and in general, there was this whole period where people were very, very against Fallow. So I do understand that um, obviously non-binary people can have overlapping struggles with binary people, but obviously the struggles can be different, can be same, and etc. But the argument I read was that non-binary people shouldn't be getting top surgery because then that would make them look male. just kind of threw me off a bit, because non-binary people are a spectrum, a scale, if you must, and everyone feels different. Like, obviously, there are non-binary identities which are similar, there are non-binary identities which are different, and I understand. I personally hate the fact that as a binary dude, I have to speak out on this, because it should be easier for true scum people to just listen to someone non-binary talk about their experience. But alas, this doesn't happen. So I do feel like, but at the same time, there are arguments, like for instance, an RFTM, like that people say that you shouldn't assume that everyone on RFTM is a man, when obviously, when you think about the acronym FTM, you think about trans men rather than transmasc people. And there are situations, for instance, when I've had non-binary people ask me, like, what are your pronouns, even though I was very masc presenting during the day, or like, in general, it just catches me off guard, and I do have an issue when people address with me with they them pronouns, just because I don't know, I'm wearing makeup that day. And it's usually non-binary people which pinpoint they them to me, or people who are very active or try to be allies and sort of like encompass all the identities, and they kind of think that if they use they them, it's safer in a way. So I do have my own issues, if you must, but I wouldn't go like posting around that non-binary people are bad, or non-binary people don't deserve to transition, because they do. I mean, I'm sorry. And at the end of the day, it's down to the doctor who's assessing us to tell us if we are trans, if we're going through the route of assessment. And if we're not going through the route of assessment, then this is a different story. But again, I can only speak from my experience, and I understand that there were, I don't know how, about now, but in the States there were cases where there were states or like places which would only have informed consent. That was the only way for a trans person to get hormones. So of course, in that situation, how would that person get assessed? So that's another issue. And in general, like back when I was getting assessed, I remember a lot of people would sort of not copy each other's answers, but would ask each other sort of like what to expect, which questions do you get, and etc. Because you just want the process to be faster. And specifically, like I knew that I was like trans since I was a child. So, well, I knew I was a guy. I didn't know that I was trans. I didn't know what trans was actually. So I knew that I was a guy. I knew that I wanted to be a guy. I knew that I was uncomfortable in my body. I knew that something was wrong with my body. And so it took me many, many years until I transitioned. Because again, my place of birth didn't have the option to have HRT unless you go like through black market, and even then I don't know anyone who went black market back then from my country. So everyone would pretty much move out and transition elsewhere. So yeah. But when it comes to self-assessment, I think it's a different sort of situation. But when it comes to gatekeeping people from being assessed by doctors, like people who are truly transgender, whatever term you want to use, they will get weeded out. The process is way too intricate. The process is way too detailed. The process is made to make sure that just trans people and people who have dysphoria, who need it, who need HRT, who need surgeons will get through. And if you look at detransitioners, it's literally people who detransition, TERFs, who get the wrong mindsets, people who don't get accepted by their families and realize that they have to sacrifice their own happiness. But they still identify as trans, and very often they go back to transition because they understand that they cannot live their life in this misery. And since we're talking about detransitioners, like, what makes you think that the transgenders or non-binary people are more likely to detransition? Like, that's sort of one of the things which sort of puzzles me. Like, I do understand that, like, during the process of coming out, we can try different labels. Like, I went thinking that I was gender fluid in the beginning of properly understanding what trans was, because I was too scared to admit that I was a trans man, because I knew that I would be met with a lot of backlash from my family, and I did. But when it comes to uh, detransitioners, the the fact that people pretty much give space to TERFs, give space to vocal haters who speak on this, just rubs me off the wrong way, because obviously there have been like drag queens who thought they were trans women and then detransitioned and they understand, or like there are non-binary people who thought they were binary and then realized they were non-binary, but they don't speak over. So every time I see a detransitioner speaking over a trans person, I just know that it comes from a place of hate. And it's the same thing right now when it comes to truscom people. They don't listen to non-binary people. They just speak over them through hate. And I understand that it's very frustrating to see other people progress faster in the transition period. But at the same time, you need to understand that your hate will get you nowhere. Like, we're already in such a vulnerable position in society that everyone is stomping over us, that we don't need more hate in our community. But who's gonna listen, you know? So yeah, so I kind of wanted to give my 2 cents on the truscom versus non-binary thing. So I do want to say I fully support non-binary people. Non-binary people can get the surgeries they need. And personally, it's literally the non-binary person and the doctor who will assess them, in my opinion. And that's the way it should be. And even when I think of my own sort of career path, because I'm thinking if I want to work like with trans people like later, I would really read on a lot, and I would be very aware, and even more aware I am of trans people than I am now, and specifically non-binary people, to understand how to assess properly. I would not turn a person down just because they're non-binary. And I think sort of doing that veil of non-binary people aren't real, or there's only man and woman, just makes you an ignorant bigot, you know? Well, that was that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would really appreciate it to be shared. I honestly don't give a shit if some trans meds write something to me. I I'd rather have it seen and start a conversation. And yeah, thank you very much. If you liked it, please subscribe, please share, please like, comment, everything else. Thank you.